teachers do not have a salary. They have to go to the unemployment line to be able to buy.
Thank you, Jerry. Roy Blunt.
Well, David, I agree with Mr. Beck that clearly, given the choice of ideology of job, the current administration has chosen ideology every time. And you hear that the first time you sit down with small business people, with job creators. There's a reason they're not creating those jobs. And to answer your question, I thought the stimulus package was a huge mistake. It was a huge waste of money. It didn't have the impact on the economy that the president promised. And we should have known from day one that it wouldn't happen. Now it had a good impact on Robert Carnahan's brother's wind farm. We've got $107 million. And I said billion, almost made a mistake. I'll tell you why. The first time my staff called and said, Secretary Biden, Vice President Biden just announced this wind farm grant, and they told me it's $107 million. I said, surely you mean $1.7 million. They said, no, it's 107. I said, no, surely, maybe it's 10.7. No, it's $107 billion. I said, it's a loan guarantee. No, it's a gift. It's a grant. It doesn't have to be paid back. It was the 12th largest stimulus energy project in the country. It didn't make sense. TARP will be paid back. This $800 billion will never be paid back, and somebody's kids owe it that didn't know anything 18 months ago.
Robert Carnahan.
The Wall Street bailout failed to deliver as promised. Congressman Blunt was one of the leaders that pushed that. I understand why he did. He has lots of friends and supporters on Wall Street that given him $1.5 million in his campaign, but it didn't do as promised. It's helped the balance sheets of the Wall Street banks. They paid the biggest bonuses in their history, and we've seen record profits again for the second year running. It didn't help small businesses in our state, and it certainly didn't stop the foreclosure crisis. This attack that he knows is false about the stimulus is laughable. If it weren't so sad that you would do this, Congressman, and stoop to this level. Papers all over the state, including your hometown newspaper, have said it was false. I have a whole list of them here if you'd like to see it. You know it's not true. I wasn't in Washington. I've been in Jefferson City. He's the one who's been in Washington. I've got nothing to do with my brother's business. So it's curious to me that you're attacking somebody who's creating jobs in our state. Why are you doing that? Is it because you're in the pocket of the oil industry? It might be. I think we need to get off our addiction to foreign oil. And so don't have these charges against my family. You know they're not true. They're below you as a person. And what you need to do is understand we've got to get off our addiction to foreign oil. And by doing that, we create American jobs.
Jonathan Dine.
The bailout of the banks really just rewarded mismanagement of corporations. My personal experience with Bank of America, anytime that I'm under my account, they kick me while I'm down and hit me with as many overdraft charges as possible. You know, the $814 billion spending stimulus, to me, it's spending money on things that are already supposed to be paid for. We have 48 cents on every gallon of gas that goes towards highway fund. But throwing money at limited sectors of the economy like construction is no way to foster job growth. I hear a lot about the government trying to create jobs, but it's not really the government's responsibility to create jobs, but to provide an environment to foster job growth by removing barriers to start up businesses, by lowering taxes to make it easier to start, but just to create the environment where it's easier to start business and foster entrepreneurship. But spending ourselves into prosperity is kind of a laughable idea. I know that most of us, when we get too much into debt, spending more is not going to necessarily be better for us. So I think neither of the bills actually did what they were promised.
We're going to offer a 30-second rebuttal here. And Jerry, it would be your chance to go first in speaking order if you would wish to say anything more.
Well, what I see is I see America traveling down a destructive road. If our nation keeps traveling down this path, our families, our children, and their grandchildren will be enslaved to the burdens that this system and this party has put upon them. They will never know the freedoms that you and I have once had, that so many have fought and died for, from Iwo Jima to Okinawa, to Saipan, to Guam, to Marianas Islands, to Midway, and to Japan, to Belleau Woods, and to Germany and Berlin. I hope that these people will abide by our Constitution and our all-important Bill of Rights. I, Jerry Beck, have taken a pledge to abide by our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and try to bring this nation back to some sort of sanity, because what they're doing in Washington, D.C. is insane. It will not work. Their system won't work. It's going to collapse us. We've got to get some people in office, some businessmen in office.
Jerry, your time is up, Jerry. Roy Blunt?
Well, David, on the $107 million, you got to tell Vice President Biden that your brother didn't get it, because he did get it, and it is significant because it's how the stimulus worked, and it creates 16 jobs. Now divide 16 into 107 million, and tell me you think that was a good investment of money. It's not a good investment of money. The difference in TARP and the stimulus, nobody wanted to do TARP. The President of the United States currently came in, raised $500,000 for my opponent. He voted for TARP. Her brother voted for TARP. I voted for TARP. Nobody wanted to do it, but the difference is it will all be paid back. And most of it's been paid back already. And that's the difference in that and deficit spending, that nobody ever gets paid back.
Robert Carnahan?
Look, again, this is just a big difference between us about whose side you're going to be on. Congressman Blunt, time and again, is on the side of Wall Street. He can figure out every rationale to give bailouts to Wall Street. He can say that it was great, that it helped our economy. He said it over and over again. But as I travel around the state, it hasn't helped. It hasn't delivered as promised. What we need is a senator who's going to be on our side, that's not going to let the big banks get by with whatever they want. When he was bailing out the banks, I was here in Missouri standing up to them, getting $10 billion back for big financial institutions, for real Missourians and others who've been taken advantage of. We need somebody in Washington who's ready to do that, to be a fighter on behalf of us. The lobbyists and special interests in big banks, they've got enough people taking care of them. Congressman, we don't need them to have another senator.
Jonathan Dine?
Every year since 1969, the Congress has spent more money than it's taken in. There's a big problem with our deficit spending. I see major issues with both the Republican and Democrat parties fighting over who wishes to spend our tax money, not really who wants to save it for the Americans. I believe the Libertarian Party is the only true friend of the taxpayer, wishing to minimize the role and maximize your economic freedom and liberty.
Okay, we're now ready for questions from the media in the audience. Go ahead.
I'm Bob Watson from the Jefferson City News Tribune. The man you all want to replace is a champion of using earmarks in the federal budgeting process. I'd like each of you to define what you think an earmark means, because as I hear people in Congress talking about it, I'm not sure they all have the same definition. And then why you are for it or against it, whether or not you think it has helped the federal process.
This question goes first to Roy Blunt.
Well, Bob, you're right. Kit Bond has fought hard for our state. He's been a competitor for our state, and it's made a difference. You know, one good example of competing for things out there to compete for would be the highway fund. The gas tax provided highway fund doesn't get any bigger or any smaller based on how much we get out of it. And in fact, when I went to Congress, which doesn't seem to me as long ago as Secretary Carnahan would want you to think it was, we were getting back less than 80 cents out of every dollar we sent in. And we worked collectively to do better at that. In fact, in this highway bill, we got a good formula that first divides the divided part of the formula up by about 94 cents out of that. 94 cents comes back. And then we were willing to fight for the things that you need to compete for. The projects of national significance part of the gas tax. The money set aside for bridges. Now we could just decide if we're going to let other states compete for that, and we're not. There's one thing I know about competition. When 98 people are competing and 2 people aren't, the 98 people may not all get it, but the 2 people that aren't competing certainly won't get it.
Robert Carnahan.
Earmarks need to be stopped, banned outright. It's a wasteful, corrupted process. It's gotten completely out of control under Congressman Blunt's watch. He's been one of the leaders in Washington. During that time, they went up 7-fold. An extra $225 billion of our money spent on things like bridges to nowhere and potato museums, and he sits here and defends it. I just think we cannot afford this. It's a wrong approach. We need to have merit and competition in how we spend our tax dollars. And even worse than just waste is when it's corrupt. And we've seen that happen with Congressman Blunt as well, when he slipped something into a bill to help a company in California that later gave quickly, later, not just a lot later, a few days later, gave you campaign contributions for the first time, and then you started riding around their corporate jets. I think that's wrong. I think we need to stop that process, clean it up, make it transparent. And Congressman, I've asked